Now in an ideal world, I'd love to bring a video out every day. Been here quite a while, scratching my head. Actually have the ports on this side. So Maud's setup doesn't have a servo because Maud's an old banger. I didn't really need to worry about how neat the pipes are on board. Single flare. The next day I got really ill, flaring all the ends. This one I done twice because I forgot to slide the fitting on first. Picked up a huge batch of parts. We can't trust any of the primer that's been put on Heidi. Found some rust. More rust. The whole car has just been lashed up to hide rust. Out came my electronic dust remover. You'll see it's got holes. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today you join me once again on my way round to my other garage to spend some time on Heidi, my hearing aid beige model Mk2 Escort. Now I've only got a couple of hours round there today and I wasn't actually going to bother going round there today if I'm honest. I will be going back round there tomorrow, but I need to drop off my brand new striker plates to the zinc platers, and the zinc platers is quite close to Heidi's garage. So I thought whilst I'm in that area I may as well at least spend a couple of hours on Heidi. I'm actually going to be starting a job that I've kind of been putting off for a little while. It's a job that needs to be done before I can put the engine in, for instance. I think I need to just chip away at the jobs on Heidi, you know, whenever I get the chance, even if it means, like today, I'm going all the way over there just for a couple of hours. Also, the last couple of videos have had quite a big gap in between them. The gap between the last video and the video before that was a whole week. And I know that you guys prefer the more regular videos. So yeah, I need to, you know, keep working on the car and keep producing the content as quick as I can. I need to be a bit more busy than I have been lately. Now in an ideal world, I'd love to bring a video out every day, but seeing as I do everything myself still, you know, I still film and edit my videos myself, I still have to deal with all the behind the scenes stuff like answering emails, etc. myself, dealing with merchandise. Granted, my beautiful girlfriend Kat does help me a lot, but you know, it's not like I've got a whole team of people. So as much as I'd love to bring a video out every day, there's simply not enough time. And these things are a balance, right? I'm quite happy to, you know, film multiple days in each video because I'd rather feel like I've actually got enough done for a video before I release a video, rather than worrying too much about how frequent the videos are. And even saying that, I feel like the last couple of videos I still hadn't got enough done. Simply because certain things on the cars take too long. So, you know, these things are a balance. I'm just trying to make the videos as good as I can and also keep them coming out regularly because I know that loads of you guys do prefer the regular updates. But anyway, I'm going to make my way to the platers, drop off those striker plates, and then I'm going to make my way to Heidi's garage to crack on with what I'm going to be cracking on with today. Alright, so I made it to the garage and I've actually been here quite a while scratching my head and yeah, it keeps trying to rain as well, which isn't ideal, but let me explain what I'm trying to get my head round. So I think it's about time that I started making up the brake pipes for this thing. I've basically got to make pipes that come from the master cylinder here and eventually go to the brakes, right? So the master cylinder's got 3 ports on it. There's one here and there's one below it. They're for the front brakes, and then there's one port here for the rear brakes. So I need to make up pipes that go from these 2 ports to each side of the inner wing, and they'll go to the front brakes, and then I need a pipe that's going to come out of here and then go, you know, to the rear of the car. And then I need to make some other pipes that go into one of the brake shoes and then another one that goes along the rear axle to the other brake shoe. So yeah, there's quite a few pipes that I need to make up. Now I always make my brake pipes out of copper tubing, which I know some people disagree with. I've actually had a few messages from you guys advising me to use the, I think it's called conifer instead of copper, which I think is a mixture of zinc and copper, and that stuff is a bit harder to work with. You know, it's harder to bend into shape and stuff, but it is way more durable. But I've never really had much problems using copper pipes, and that's what I'm going to do for this build as well. Now, as well as cutting the pipe to length and bending it around the engine bay and along the car to route to the brakes, I also need to flare the ends, and the flaring tool that I use is this one. I have tried the other type of flaring tool before, the one that you have to sort of hold in the vise, and I've never really had much luck with it. I find these ones are way easier to use. I've actually made a video explaining how I go about flaring the ends of the brake lines with this tool, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. And this box over here, I've got a load of brake fittings. We've got male ones in a couple of different lengths, and these are all metric fittings, by the way. And then we've got these female ones. Now, these male ones are the ones that go in the master cylinder, for instance. And when you use a male fitting like this, it's my understanding that you use a single flare. So it's kind of like a sort of mushroom shape, if you like. Whereas when you use one of these female fittings, which will be, for instance, at the other end of the pipe where it goes through the inner wing here, so the flexi hose on the other side of the inner wing will have a male bit on it, and then the pipe that I'm going to make to go from here to here, for instance, will have this female fitting on the end and needs a double flare. But the video that I made before explains all about how to make a single and a double flare. Now, what I've been scratching my head about is exactly how I'm going to route these pipes from the master cylinder and around the engine bay and whatnot. Now, some master cylinders actually have the ports on this side, and when I've seen that in Escorts, the pipes sort of come out here, you know, neatly, and, you know, the rear one will come out here, and then you have like both of the pipes running next to each other, nice and tight to the servo, and then they sort of kink here, and then, you know, they're held in with clips along here, and then, you know, they go down there like that. The rear one will obviously go to the rear, and then the other one goes sort of around here to the other hole in the inner wing down there. But this master cylinder has the ports on this side, and I'm basically trying to figure out whether I should have the pipes coming out like this and then going, you know, similar to how I just explained, but opposite, so over the servo like that and then continue, or whether I should just have them going down and maybe have them going under here, because there is a slight gap that they could get through there, and then, you know, they won't be as visible in the engine bay, you know, so they would sort of all run down here, you know. So the third one, obviously, which is going to come out of the bottom there, will follow the other two as well and just go to that hole in the inner wing, and then the other two will go along here, one of which will go to the rear brakes, and then the other one will go over the engine bay here. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking that that will be a more neat solution, but I'm worried that that won't look proper, because, as I say, usually in these cars you do sort of see the brake pipes, and people just sort of try and make them nice and neat, but they're not sort of hidden under the servo. So that's what I've been trying to decide on. And I'm literally at the situation now where I've probably got another hour around here, and yeah, I haven't done anything apart from stand around here and scratch my head, and I can just feel more rain again, which is annoying. So I think I'm just going to scratch my head for a little bit longer, and then I'm just going to have to make my mind up and dive in, because otherwise I'm not going to get any of this done today. I will quickly just show you Maud's brake lines, because her setup is a little bit different. So Maud's setup doesn't have a servo, it just has a master cylinder here, which is a non-servo master cylinder, you know, just attached to the bulkhead, and the brake lines for that are on that side, on the right hand side as you're looking at it. And yeah, literally you've got the one that comes out the bottom, goes to that inner wing. I know it's really hard to see, hopefully you can just about see the female fitting on there, and then yeah, the other one from the front there sort of comes out and then goes around here, you can just see it there, and then eventually goes into the inner wing down there, and then the rear port of that master cylinder, that just goes down and goes to the back of the car. But yeah, because the master cylinder is so deep in the engine bay, and because Maud's an old banger, I didn't really need to worry about how neat the pipes are on moored. But with Heidi, I do want to make them look nice and neat. Now, I will quickly mention that the problem that some people have with the idea of using copper brake pipe is that from vibration, it can become work hardened, which then means it's prone to crack. So if you are going to be using copper pipe like I am, you need to make sure that there's a good number of clips or something holding the brake pipe to the bodywork. You know, if you put some sort of fixing point every 12 inches, you should be all right. You know, I've never really had an issue with using copper pipe. In fact, the only time that I find they tend to fail is when you're undoing the fittings, say, from a master cylinder or a brake caliper or something. And, you know, if I just show you on here, so, you know, this fitting would be on here. Obviously, this end would be flared. And basically, when you're undoing the fitting, sometimes the pipe can sort of get seized inside this fitting, so the fitting isn't able to slip, and then what happens is the pipe ends up getting twisted as you're undoing it. That's the only issue I've ever had. But usually if you spray some sort of lubricant on the fitting, you know, in between the fitting and the pipe, before you start undoing it, that issue it rarely happens, and I don't think that using the other type of brake pipe would prevent that issue anyway, to be honest. Alright, I've pulled Heidi into the garage because it keeps trying to rain, but a decision has been made. I think I'm going to try and do this super neat and have the pipes going down underneath the servo there. That will mean that I'll need to figure out how exactly I'm going to fix the pipes to the inner wing under there, because, you know, normally they'd be fixed to the top of the servo here, but yeah, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. But yeah, I think it'll be super neat not having the pipes showing. So we'll cue some music and I'll see how neat or not I can make this look.
I started by cutting a length of the copper pipe long enough to go from the master cylinder round the engine bay to the passenger side inner wing. I roughly bent it to shape and routed it around the bay. I then focused on bending, marking and cutting the master cylinder end of that pipe before adding a single flare to it. I then used my pipe bender to finalise the bend on the end of that pipe before screwing it into the master cylinder. With a double flare added to the other end, that was one of many of Heidi's brake pipes finished. The next day I got really ill, so I didn't get back round to Heidi's garage till a few days later, when I started working on the other two brake pipes in her bay. Here I'm using one of the brake pipes as a template to bend the other one. Then it was just a case of routing the pipes and flaring all the ends. This one I've done twice because I forgot to slide the fitting on first. And even though I was feeling really rough, it was awesome to make some more progress. The pipe going to the rear brakes is going to be in two halves with this joiner in the middle, so I'll add the flare and fitting to the end of this pipe when I finalise that pipe.
Hello, so unfortunately on the day after I started working on Heidi's brake pipes, I got really ill. In fact, I spent all day that day in bed. And those of you that watch the daily vlogs on the Marcus Hayes On Track channel would have seen all about that. Now the plan was to get back round to the garage for a full day to complete Heidi's brake pipes, but that just hasn't happened. As you would have seen in the clips before, I did get round there for a little while, a few days after I started getting ill, and I managed to basically finish doing the brake pipes that are in the engine bay. And on that day, I actually picked up a huge batch of parts for Heidi from my zinc platers. And although I'm really excited to start getting some of those bling parts fitted, I think I'm actually going to wait until I've got things like the inside of the boot and bonnet painted beige, and then I'll just throw a load of those shiny bits on. Anyway, whilst I have been ill, I have been working on the inside of Heidi's boot lid in my garden, so I'll throw those clips in to this video now.
We can't trust any of the primer that's been put on Heidi by previous owners, and I didn't need to remove much from her boot lid until I found some rust. A quick pass with the DA sander revealed more rust, but luckily the middle area of the boot lid looked quite good. So I turned my attention back to the edges and stripped those right back to bare metal.
Alright, so I'm running out of daylight, but I've definitely made a decent head start on this. I'm going to have to
at the bare minimum, remove all of this grey primer, because just like the rest of the car, this grey primer's been put on without prepping the stuff underneath. It's all chipping off in lumps, which means, yeah, they didn't even key up this boot lid before they put the primer on. And going by the amount of scabs that I've found, this, along with other areas on the car, has just been primered to hide those rust scabs. Yeah, a lot of them are really bad. You know, I've gone over these loads of times with wire brushes. I think the boot lid is savable, but only just. And yeah, as I say, the whole car has just been lashed up to hide the rust, in my opinion. But it is what it is. So I'm happy how much of this I've been able to do with the DA. I'm going to have to go round the edges and, you know, sand the grey primer away by hand. And yeah, the inside of this boot lid is going to be almost completely bare metal by the time I've done that. But one thing I want to do right now is put some cure rust just round the edges where all the worst of the rust was, because, you know, these areas are bare metal now. They're essentially ready for me putting on some primer, apart from putting the cure rust on first. So yeah, if I just cure rust the edges, and then I'll call it a day for now. I used the Acrosol from Kent Europe to degrease the bare metal areas, and then I poured on the cure rust and spread it round with a microfiber, because I didn't have a paintbrush. Here you can see it turning purple as it reacts with the rust. A couple of days later, I removed all of the remaining grey primer with some sandpaper, because we just can't trust any of it. And then I smoothed off any areas that I could with the DA sander, before going around the rest of it with the Kent foam sanding pad. Out came my electronic dust remover. And then after another clean with the Acrosol, it was time to heat up the Kent epoxy primer and start applying it to the inside of Heidi's boot lid. I was sure to put extra coats around the edges where the worst of the rust was before, and then just gave the whole of the inside of the boot a nice, even, relatively thick coat.
So there you go, after hours and hours and hours and hours of labour whilst I've been ill, the inside of Heidi's boot lid is now actually in pretty good shape. And today I'm going to throw on a coat of the Kent Europe 1K high build primer, which I've got warming up in some hot water right now. Another thing I've been cracking on with while I've been ill is smoothing off the high build primer that I put on these hinges. I just used the Gold Flex stuff. And yeah, they're smooth enough now to paint beige. And yeah, I'll be painting a whole load of bits beige at the same time. But yeah, here is the current state of the inside of Heidi's boot lid. I didn't fully bare metal this thing, as you would have seen in the clips. One thing I wanted to try and do was keep this original, you know, sealer, these blobs of sealer, rather than, you know, digging them all out and then deciding whether I was going to try and replicate that or seal it all the way around. But yeah, I'm loving how this thing is looking. One thing worth noting, you'll see it's got holes here, or what were holes. Now I'm not sure if maybe at some point it had a chrome trim on the outside of here. One thing I have done is just ground the paint off of the outside here, just to see how these holes have been filled, and they look like they have actually been welded up. So yeah, that's not a worry. I'll just put some sealer on the insides before I paint the inside of this boot lid beige, and yeah, that'll be fine. I think what I'll do right now is just throw some epoxy primer on this sort of bare metal bit. I mean, it's not fully bare metal anymore, because when I epoxied the inside, it's got a little bit of a dusting on. But yeah, I'll give it a bit more of a coat on that, just to stop it going so rusty until we paint the outside. This will be fully stripped back again anyway. But yeah, I'll just do that, and then I'll shake up the high build primer and give this thing a coat. I think I'll concentrate more on this outer edge, because I'm not sure how much high build primer I've got. I'm not sure if I've got enough to give the whole thing a thick coat, but I've got more of that high build primer at the other garage, so I can give the whole of the inside of the boot lid another coat then if I need to. There we go, literally barely got a coat on the whole thing, and I've got plenty on these really pitted areas around the edge. So yeah, hopefully that'll be enough primer in itself to smooth off enough ready for paint. So there you go. Despite being ill, I have made some more progress on Heidi, but yeah, it's just been a whole week where I've done way less than I planned. I have actually shot the next video already when I went to see a subscriber to check out his cars, but also I picked up some crucial parts for Heidi, which I'll be showing you guys in a future video. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting those parts ready and fitting them to the car. But I think what I'm going to crack on with next is finishing what I should have done in this video, which is Heidi's brake pipes, and yeah, getting all these bits that are nearly ready to paint beige. And yeah, I think when them bits are painted beige and fitted back to the car, and we start fitting the zinc plated parts, then the project's really going to feel like it's coming together. And yeah, I've just got so much to do, but I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are going to stick with me to follow progress. So that's all I've got for this video. Massive thanks as always to everyone who's tuned in. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Check out my website for merch and parts. Massive thanks as always to my patrons for your ongoing support. I'll leave all the links to everything in the description, along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.